Hello, I am Rachel McLean, Community Relations Liaison with the Mather, a forward-thinking life plan community being developed in Tysons for those 62 and better. Our community is projected to open in 2023, and we are currently taking reservations. At the Mather, we recognize that art infuses our lives with vibrancy and meaning, and we are so honored to be able to support the McLean Project for the Arts Meet the Artist series. Enjoy the conversation.
Good evening and welcome to the end of day one of our Meet the Artist series. This series is a real silver lining of our virtual MPA Artfest. We know you'll enjoy time with Helen Frederick, our wonderful board member, who is leading us through conversations with Lori Katz, Joyce Lee, and Carolee Jakes. Thank you for being with us, and we invite you to check in all week as we get to know the rest of our MPA Artfest artists.
Hello, and welcome to the MPA Artfest Art Talks. I'm Helen Frederick, Artist Board Member of the McLean Project for the Arts. And I'm thrilled to welcome you and introduce two superb artists who are exhibiting in this MPA Artfest. For those of you who may not know, this is the 14th year of Artfest. And of course, this year it's virtual. So it's a very special year, and we bring the art community, artists, music, events, and more during the festival. This year, we're very thrilled to be exhibiting 52 artists who were juried and curated into the festival. And we welcome them, and we are honored to have them. I want to encourage you to go and look at the website where you can view their studios under the artist sections of the website. And please browse their work and get to know more about them. Today, I'm very excited to introduce you to three artists. The first is Lori Katz, who's a ceramicist who's very influenced by Asian ideas and also is very minimalist in her work. And the second is Joyce Lee, who's a realistic painter who does landscapes, portraits, and flowers, and is involved with Korean symbolism. And we're also proud that she's a teacher in our classroom instruction. And the third is Carolee Jakes, who has spent time in Skopolis, Greece, and with the handprint workshop. And she's a painter, printmaker, and book artist. So I welcome all three of you. And we'll start right now with Lori Katz, who's nearby her studio. Hi, Lori.
Hello there, Helen.
I'm delighted to be with you today. Thank you. So I think it would be really interesting for you to tell us a little bit about your background, and that could be influences, that could be college or university, or it could be travel. Tell us something about how you got to where you are as an artist, please. Share that with us.
Okay. I've been working as an artist my entire adult career. More than 40 years. And prior to that, as a kid and as a student, I always fooled around with art. I was always making things, not so much painting or drawing, but always building things, making things. I'm very much a tactile person. And in college, I went to GW. In college, I took ceramics classes and really fell in love with the material. It was not my first experience with clay, but it was my first academic experience with clay. And I just really felt that I had found my medium. And and after college, things kind of just gelled for me. I fell into an apprenticeship with a potter, actually at the Torpedo Factory in Alexandria, Virginia. Just a chance happening on a visit, and there was a notice up, and I said, sure. And, did that for a couple of years. And that was a very good experience in terms of being a working studio artist. And then after that, I think, as is sometimes the case when you have such intense one-on-one instruction and experience, I felt like I spent a few years kind of fighting to get my own after that, and to really develop my own work, as opposed to making somebody else's work, which was what I was doing. So, and it just came together. I've been working in clay for over 40 years. My work started as functional mugs, brown and blue mugs. And I always was trying to, I had a vision, and I wasn't able to achieve it for a while. For the past, I would say, about 12 years, I'm going to stop myself. Prior to about 15 years ago, let's say, I had been working in brightly colored, heavily decorated earthenware, somewhat functional. I've always kind of crossed a line between function and, let's just call it, art. And then at a certain point, I just couldn't make that work anymore. It was too small. It was too tight. And I made a conscious decision to pare down to black and white. Mm-hmm. And I was using black clay and white clay, and I was using a clear glaze, and it was very, very graphic, and I loved it. And it was still incredibly meticulous, because I think that's just who I am and how I work. But it was good, and I started doing functional pieces, functional dinnerware. But I loved how it looked, and I wanted to see it up on the wall, and that moved me to start doing wall pieces, to start focusing on pieces for the wall, and that work has evolved quite a bit since the time I started it. My work today is, I've let color back in slowly. It's no longer exclusively black and white. Very little of it is shiny. Very little of it is glazed. It's mostly right now about surface and texture, balance, line, mark. I have a hard time articulating what I do, but it's
for itself, and this wonderful long journey that you're telling us about is so indicative of what happens when you have a strong mentor, and then you break through and find your own way.
Yeah.
And the sensuality of the clay allows you to construct in new forms, from off the wheel, it sounds like, to construction of other means. Yeah. So look how much you've developed. And I love that you did black and white clay. I just assumed when I saw the images it was white clay and that you added black marks. So I love that the base of the material, the materiality, is so informative to you. That's really amazing.
My work is completely informed by the materials. I mean, that's really what carries me forward. And each piece is informed by the one before it. The piece behind me that you see over my shoulder here was part of a group of work that I did. Clay has limitations. I can only make work that's so big. That's a 24-inch square, which for me is enormous. Oh. And it's not clay. It was part of a series that I did that was oil paint, cold wax, gel medium on board. And was part of I had a solo show, and I worked toward that. I knew I wanted to do big things, and that was as big as I could get. I've got 4 boards that are 4x6 in my studio that are they're getting there, but it was very hard to make that leap. My first love is clay, and when I'm working with paint, I'm trying to make it look like clay. So
what will we be seeing in the festival?
I'm sorry?
What will we be seeing in the festival?
Mostly my clay wall pieces. I will show some vessels. I have a new series of vessels that I'm doing that I'm very excited about right now. And I may have one or two of my paintings on board. It just kind of depends. We're about a month away, so I've got all the time in the world, right?
So have there been other things that have influenced you, like travel or literature or archaeology? I mean, I see all of that in your work. What else has influenced you to?
I have to say I'm a very visual person, and I feel like my biggest influences come from the world around me. They just come from textures that I see. I don't feel like a lot of them are deliberate or intentional. I go on, when I go on vacation, I come home with, a phone full of pictures of rocks and concrete walkways and things like that. That's what speaks to me. So I don't, you mentioned an Asian influence. I think every potter, everybody who works in clay has an Asian influence because that's just the history of the material. People look at my work and they make that connection. To me, it's not a deliberate or intentional influence. It's part of the history. Yeah.
Right. Has COVID-19 affected your thinking in any way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm smiling, right? But I'm not a happy person right now. And I have to say, COVID has been very difficult. I always worked part-time in my home and part-time in a public studio. So now I'm working entirely at home. I'm very happy with that. I kind of like holing up a little bit. But I think, we're all in these crazy heads right now, and it's not just COVID. It's, I won't go into it, but it's the political situation. It's very tough, and it's informing my work. And,
So have you been inspired enough to stay in this area because of our museums and the culture that you see around us? Where were you born, and how did you get here, and why do you stay here?
Oh, I was born in Jersey City, New Jersey, and I came here to Washington to go to college, and I just never left. I love DC. I mean, I think it's a wonderful city. I love the museums. It's fantastic. There's just so much to see here. I raised two children here. They're, they're grown people. They are in New York, but I love it here. I don't know if I'll ever leave. There's just so much, and I love being out in nature, and that this offers me, just proximity to wonderful museums, wonderful experiences, both inside and outside. In an hour I can be out in the mountains and walking around. It's pretty lovely.
Is there any particular exhibit that you recall, both as a viewer or as a maker, that has kind of changed? Has it raised some kind of epiphany or awareness for you in your studio practice?
I really don't think so, honestly. I have to say one of my very favorite places to go to is Glenstone. And I think I'm just mostly struck by the architecture. It's, I love what I see there, but I don't think there's any one particular thing that has really hit me. You just kind of pick up little things here and there as you go. I'm also I've had a couple of experiences in my life where people have used my work as what they say is inspiration, and I have not been happy about that because to me it was more than inspiration. And I actually make a point of not looking at a lot of contemporary art. I just feel like my work is very personal. I feel like it's very original, and I try not to let other work influence mine at this point. I don't take workshops. I taught for a very long time. I don't any longer.
That reminds me of a story when I was in Jemez and I went to buy a storyteller figure. And there was a woman there. There were 11 storytellers in the family, and she was the eldest. And all the others had monographs. And I said, "Why don't you have a monograph?" And she said, "There is time. There is time." So she felt really, really influenced that her work was very, very unique. And she didn't have to worry about having a lot of people in the public view think about its relevance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like your statement.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You often work in series. Is that very like?
I work in series. I do. You know, I think in series, and I work every day. I have worked every day in my studio, you know, forever. And during COVID, this has just given me, you know, I come down in the morning and I'm just down here and it's good. And so I am, you know, I work on 12 pieces at a time, you know, and just kind of get them all to the next stage. And they're not always a group as I'm making them. Individual components often are put together to become a larger composition. And it's, you know, that's just the way my brain works.
So it's very physical work. What gets you started? Do you exercise? Do you listen to music? Do you have any particular rhythm in the day? Or
I do exercise. I tend not to listen to music when I work, and I probably should because I listen to NPR and it just gets me crazy. So, you know, I probably should chill and listen to music. But I actually, so in the morning, what I do is I drink coffee and I come downstairs and I just get to work, and I do take a break, usually mid-afternoon, and exercise. I live near a lake, and it's great. It's about a 4.5 mile walk, and I just go and I power through it and come home. And, you know, sometimes I wash my face after that, and I just come down and I get back to work. And, you know, I'm at a point in my life where I don't really have to, you know, my husband's upstairs working at home. I'm down here, and it's great. I don't have to worry about my time being somebody else's. So
get in the car and travel to your studio. It's right there.
Well, right now it's right here, and I have been going in. I do have a studio, as I mentioned, at the Torpedo Factory, and I'm of about 8 different minds about whether or not I'm going to keep that at this point. Right now I'm keeping it, but I'm not going in, but by appointment. So
hard to know what to decide.
Yeah, it is hard.
One last question. What would you say to a young artist? What advice would you give to me?
Well, I think it's very difficult. I think it depends on what you want to do with your art. I have always made my living as an artist, which has been very hard. It has never been something that I did as well as something else. Although having said that, I did teach, but the teaching felt like it supplemented my art. I taught ceramics, you know, but what I would tell a young person is maybe figure out what do you want it to do for you? What do you have to say? This will impact your life in a big way. How do you want it to impact your life? And then if you don't want it to take over, maybe you keep it as something that you do for yourself. If you're okay with letting it take over, then go for it. You know, there's so much more to just making the work.
Yeah.
As a studio artist, there's so much more.
Yes, of course. Oh, what great answers. It's just been delightful to.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for being patient with me signing on.
We look forward to being with you, of course, all this month during ArtFest. So congratulations again. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Helen.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Joyce. It's so good to see you. How are you today?
Good to see you, Helen.
Yes, it's just wonderful to be doing these interviews with you and others. I'm interviewing 6 people today, so it's been great. And it's so one of the 52 juried and curated in the show. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's so honored to be part of it.
And is this your first time in the ArtFest, or have you done it before?
I've done many times before MPA, right. So it's actually MPA for me. It's the 3rd time.
Right, and you're also teaching classes for us. Thank you.
I do have classes in MPA as well.
Yeah. So because we're going virtual, I thought it would be really interesting for everyone
to learn about your background a little bit. And that could be your influences or your college or your university or where you're from. Anything you want to tell us about yourself? Would you share that, please?
Oh, yeah, sure, of course. I'm from Korea. Study actually, when I came here, study computer science. I was working as a programmer for a little bit, and I've become a mom and decide to think about what actually I want to be in 10 years. And I was thinking about missing painting, drawing when I was young. So I started doing it and I was like, oh my gosh, I can actually do really well. And that's how I actually studied back to what I really always dreaming of. So it's been great so far.
And do you spend a lot of time in nature? Because obviously the symbolism in your flowers have a deep meaning. Maybe you could tell us something a little bit even about the two pieces behind you.
Behind me, I have beautiful sunflowers. I went to there's a lot of parks and gardens around Vienna. I live in Vienna, Virginia, and there's a great balls around me and Meadowlark Garden or River Bend and or bluebells or the sunflowers I got from what's the name of the place? The garden in Manassas area. And I went with my kids. I have 3 kids, and we went there, walk around with, taking mommy photo times, and I always drag my kids all over like this. And I want to grab the feeling of those flowers, like breathtaking moment when I see them, when I bring my phone to take a photo every time. And what about if I bring this feeling and relate it to some different meaning of energies of each flower. So that's how I study some Asian culture, a little bit more of my background. Actually, my father was watercolor paint back in 1980s, and he was study some like Oriental paintings related to a lot of symbolic meanings. So for example, like peonies, like when you have peonies on your home, they believe that brings your family your wealth and honor. So just like that, and my flowers, most of them has all those meanings together. So.
And is the scale important to you? Because, at Dumbarton Oaks, they have a wonderful library that is dedicated to miniatures. But your work is bursting with energy and size. Does that have do you do that for a particular reason and intent to make it very sensual, or what it describe? Is it oil paint, acrylic? Describe something more about that.
I started smaller and then I getting bigger and bigger. I want to give this one has more impact when people look at it because of not just because of size, but all the energy flew around. Actually, I'm a martial artist as well. So the energy flew around the flower in my painting gives you a bigger impact. And you look at it just because of sometimes the size wise, and it gives you more attention and you're going to have a stronger feeling. So I start painting bigger and bigger and keep bigger and bigger. So I actually love, and a lot of my students ask me, do you feel smaller is harder, bigger is harder? I feel like you work same amount as my style. But if you paint bigger, there's more space so you can play with this beautiful paint. So I prefer always paint bigger and you get more focus and more time.
As you work larger, you must change your brushes and the size of how you make the marks, right?
Surprisingly, I used a lot of small brushes. Started with a very big, of course, underpainting, because my size is usually 36 by 48 or inches, and those are big. I need a big brush to start, but I get to very tiny brushes, a lot of strokes, and a lot of focus. So there are a lot of blending brush strokes going around and a lot of different techniques going around. But yes, I switch brushes a lot between big and small.
And so what are you thinking about doing next in, say, the next year? What are some of the ideas that are percolating for you to do as images or concepts, core values, themes, anything that's coming to you that's new?
I was thinking about actually recently I missed the park so much. Since we have a COVID, I used to drag my kids. When people ask my kids, like, I don't want to go. I don't want to follow mom. Wherever mom goes, there are a lot of bugs and hot. But that was the one thing that I miss. I must go like every weekend, bring my kids, walk around these flower gardens and parks a lot. And so I like to paint some landscapes. I recently have a couple of them, and I really love, I miss, like, I can almost see that place and running, I can see running around with my kids, and that's what like my next project's gonna be.
And
So
do
excited.
you have a garden, for example, where you live?
I do. I'm in my house. That's what I started. I have like some peony gardens, like here and there. I actually have a very big, hundreds of peonies blooming in the spring usually, and I have a lot of cherry blossoms blooming in my backyard. But this year I just started vegetable gardens actually, just like other people. I have a lot of other bigger garden started this spring as well. Very excited.
Yeah, that's kept us active and relevant, I think, right? Yeah.
That's right. It's been great.
So do you ever listen to any particular kind of radio, or is there anything that influences you in music or film, Korean influence at all in that way?
On my painting.
Yeah, or on your painting.
I'm a piano player as well, so I sometimes my background, George Winston, just listening to music, and sometimes there's a called rain, and I can feel that the rain movement on my painting. You know, it just you're dancing too at that point with the brush strokes, and yeah, basically you're just like stroking around, but yeah, that's usually.
It's very obvious in your work, and a lot of kinesthesia from your gestures. What would you say to a young artist? What advice would you give a young artist?
Young artist, I have a lot of young artists around me.
Yes.
And students, and you never know. Don't give up. If you feel like you don't know what you're doing right now, set up the small something that you can finish, and give you feel more confident when you finish it, and that makes you actually keep going. That's how I feel like it all the times. Sometimes my painting job takes a year and a half, sometimes year, very long time each project. And it's sometimes very hard to focus and keep going. Frustration, anger, sometimes, sadness. But if you have some goal that you can just focus on just a little bit, and then you're very happy with it, that actually make you keep going. So actually, I think that's always suggest my students, and just to be happy, confident. Doesn't matter if you make a mistake, it's fine. You don't know what you're doing, it's fine. You're just have so much time, and I didn't know I'm going to be artist when I was this age. So I thought I'm going to be a programmer or something else, but you never know. So don't give up.
Where else will you be exhibiting this coming year? Is there anywhere else that you're going to show your work?
I have a studio in Great Falls, and I have, it's always ongoing exhibit going on, and I have actually art festival, outdoor art festivals going around as well around Northern Virginia. But my distance was very limited because my 3 kids are still young. So I'm be around here, not too far.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm so glad you have heard your stories. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad you're in the festival. I'm looking forward to what's on the website as well to show us more. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice to meet you.
Hello, Carolee. It's so nice to see you with all these wonderful images behind you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, this MPA Virtual Fest this year, I think with 52 amazing artists who are curated and juried. It makes this such a special event, and we're really, really congratulating you for being part of it and for joining. Thank you. So start maybe because you do have this wonderful backdrop of process and finished work about the core themes in your work. What are you working on?
Well, I think my core themes have to do with movement, air, water, everything around me. I like to keep my eyes open everywhere I go, whatever I'm doing. And I may see lines in water, in movement of the air, in the movement of everything around me. And you can see movement in the way things sometimes degrade, even if it's like cement or the rust patterns in something. So I take all of those, that's really what I take to begin my drawings.
So can you tell us something about what's behind you? Is there a woodcut and a finished print? What do we see?
There is. What you see over here on my, I guess, right, is a large wood block. It's a 60 by 90 inch that I did last year. I printed that with big ink. So they have a giant press. And that is just kind of a collection of all this imagery and movement, and it really started from a big drawing and then grew from there. I'm not sure how to describe it other than to say that there is just everything flows into everything else, and it's about this connectedness with everything. It's called Stupor Mundi.
Wonderful. And it's not from a preliminary drawing. When you're doing the print, you're actually making the image. Is that correct?
On this one, the preliminary drawing, yes, because the drawing is never quite complete enough. Because with a drawing, there is always a gray area. And when you're carving on woodblock, there is no gray. So everything has to be either carved or not carved. And so there is a final decision that is, I don't make those decisions in the drawing, I make those on the block as I'm finishing it.
Yes.
So it's kind of a combination.
What an accomplishment to do something so intricate, so large. It's very, very big. It's a great experience. Yeah.
Well, it's very satisfying to do something like that. You know, because you just it's application and just applying yourself day after day, and it just becomes, and when it's completed, it feels very good.
Yes.
So thank you. Yeah.
Scopolis in Greece, I know. You've been there a couple times. How does travel influence your work and the movement that you see there? How has that influenced you?
It influences it very much. I mean, the water and the air on Scopolis are, they're always moving. Everything is always moving there. And so to me that feeds. And the next image over there, the navy blue, that is a print of a woodblock, and that is actually from Scopolis. So it's incorporating, and I feel like the ocean is always moving, the air is always moving, and then we are this steady solidity within all that movement. And that's, you know, what I'm trying to capture in that particular piece.
Greece, are you really in love with that idea as a culture? And do you read literature or listen to music or anything that also influences you from that part of the world?
I do. I when I'm there, I try to totally immerse myself in that. I love where I stay because I don't stay in a European or an American hotel. I stay in a guest house, and I try to be with Greeks from Scopolis while I'm there. I listen to a lot of Greek music, and I try to get all of that to kind of come into the music and into the experience.
Right. And you're a printmaker, you're a painter, and you're a book artist. Are you working on all of those things right now during COVID? Or is there one material that's more appealing during COVID?
I'm working on all of it right now. I'm actually using right now. I'm got a collaborative book that I'm working on with another artist, Beth Curran, who is also a Corcoran graduate, and we did one very successful book together a few years ago, and we were actually that book is in the collection of the Library of Congress Rare Books collection. So we're doing another one this fall, and the pages, my portion of the artwork will be on woodblock. So I'm working on woodblock and book art for that. And I've also been working on a lot of paintings. I kind of go back and forth, and the paintings feed into the print, and the prints feed into the paintings. So it kind of, the different media kind of feed each other.
And what's the material of your paint? Is it water-based, or is it, I mean, I think your work is very sensual and also very tender. Does that apply to what medium you choose to use, if it's more watery, or the brushes, or anything you can let the audience know about that process?
Yeah, I think that it's actually, I use oil-based paints. I don't use any solvents when I use them. I only wash with soap and water, which I think allows me to be able to work with them a little bit more. And I love the buttery feel of the oils, and the fact that I can, you know, over the course of a day, I can work through pushing different colors back and forth on the surface that I think that adds to that sensuality. So I have more time to work with the color while it's still wet. Yeah. And that's why I really like the oils. I also like being able to glaze, and the glazes, I feel that they're a little, I mean, the pigment disperses so well within that glaze, and I get a lot of colors that emerge that I don't expect. And I like that. I mean, I like that, that combination of control, but letting it happen.
A little bit of risk-taking there.
Yeah, yeah.
That has been illustrative for you in an exhibit, or in a way has drawn out, you know, like a folklorist kind of brings stories out of us. Is there any particular show or painter that has been influential in your work?
Ah, interesting. Well, I have to say, I can't think of a particular, well, that's not quite true. Rembrandt is always has a huge impact on me, because I love the way that his characters are very down to earth. You know, his paintings, the people that he paints, the flaws and all. He makes the flaws beautiful. And I think that is one of the things that I love about Rembrandt. So he definitely impacts me. I think that the other thing that has impacted my work and the way I work is actually a person. I've worked a lot with Dennis O'Neill and the HPWI, Handprint Workshop International, and seeing how he works collaboratively with other artists, and the way that mistakes aren't really mistakes, they're just opportunities. Yes. And that has impacted my work quite a lot.
Yes. Were you thinking of traveling with Dennis to Russia at any point?
Oh, I would absolutely love to. If that were ever to happen, I would be thrilled to do that. Because Dennis is how I got to Skopelos. You know, Dennis and Georgia Deal, and that was, and I go back every other year. Planning, I hope I'll be able to go back next year. Because with COVID, I mean, I love to travel. I really love flying places and watching the sky around me when I'm landing and taking off, and all those things I find very inspirational, and so I feel a bit grounded right now.
Yes. Well, yeah. You do another big block, you won't feel grounded. I could just see you getting totally into it.
True.
I also see that being a huge book process cover, or, you know, something that could wrap around. It like embraces you, that large print.
I would like to do that. I'm definitely toying with that. I think it will be something that I will do over a long period of time, so that I can get. It takes me a long time to evolve the image when it's that large, and so I need to take time to do that.
Yeah, and I love it, because people always think that printmaking is a certain shape, a certain size, and very analytical. and your work is just the opposite. It's free flow.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to talk about that. Are you reading anything in particular right now?
I'm reading actually The Mysteries of the Rectangle. I had never read that before. And I love the essays and the way Siri Hustvedt looks at things.
She's a marvelous writer, isn't she?
She is a marvelous writer, yeah. So I'm enjoying that very much.
Is that one of her early books or mid?
It is. It is, yeah.
Thanks
Yeah.
for reading that. And do you listen to music while you're working, or is there any other sort of discipline that influence you, your ritual in the studio?
Music really is the key for me. I always listen to music while I'm in the studio. I actually have 2 children that are professional musicians. So I have, and my daughter out in Oregon is really pushing boundaries in the way that she writes and plays. And so I often listen to either her music or my son's music, and I listen to all kinds of music, but always.
Instrument too? Are you also a musician?
I grew up as a musician. I was a trumpet player when I was younger. I actually started college as a music major, but I became practical and I went into nursing. So I worked as an RN for a while.
Well, and talking about the wind, if you're blowing an instrument, you're really dealing with wind in the body.
You are. And music is always moving. It's interesting.
I love what you're saying, because I think people don't understand that artists don't always start as an artist, that they go through many different changes. When I first came to Washington and I would ask people to introduce themselves, they'd have at least 5 jobs they would describe. And then they said, oh, and then I decided to be an artist. The journey can be any shape, form, sequence. It's really interesting.
Yes.
So the last question I'd love to ask you is, what is your advice to a young artist just starting out?
I think that it's so important when you're a young artist to listen to everyone around you, to learn, to be open to lots of ideas that you don't think are, learn everything, listen to everything, but ultimately you need to trust yourself and do your own work. I think that it's really important to have faith in your own vision. But do listen to others. Do absorb everything that's going around, because when I was a young student, I ignored things and thought, I'm not interested in that. And going back to school when you're in your 40s, I was determined not to say, no, I don't do anything. No, I don't do landscape, or no, I don't do hands, or no, I don't do feet. I wanted to learn it all. And if that's a good way to do it, but at the very end, you still need to trust yourself and do your own work. Do what feels right to you.
Really great advice. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the entire interview and all your answers. And we've had great discussions today. So audience, whether you listen at lunchtime or dinner time or in between, we're delighted you join us and you participate as a viewer and a learner. And we hope these interviews are really giving you insight into these wonderful artists' work. Remember to go into the artist section of the website and view more of their work, browse around and really look at more of the work. And again, thank you so much for joining us. We're really glad you're with this 15th MPA Art Fest. We appreciate all of your support. Thank you.